Go to the New York City Transit and Bus Committee meeting. Let's get started with our safety announcements.
Your safety is of foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen to the following instructions. In the event of an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room, and 911 should be called. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell D down the hallway past the elevators. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. Thank you and have a safe day.
Thank you. I'd like to move now to our public speakers.
Good morning. We have 8 members of the public registered to speak today, 4 in person and 4 remote. We ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. As a reminder to the public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. The first speaker will be David Kupferberg, followed by Robert Whitaker.
I have nothing personal against Mr. Davey. I am sure that he would most likely give a glowing report, especially about the rollout of the service changes effective yesterday connected to the Bronx Bus Network redesign. Unfortunately, the fact sheet embedded in the June 21st press release has errors and omissions. The customer assistance program for the Bronx Bus Network redesign started June 12th at key locations, but none of these locations, past, present, and future, are on the MTA website. Customer ambassadors are distributing brochures at these locations, but these brochures fail to mention service and transfer information. Connections would be better, but not facilitate more interborough travel. Reliability would increase, but 3-legged transfers have been kept secret. The bus speed would increase, but nothing has been mentioned about passenger travel time. And bus service in the neighborhoods of Baychester and Port Morris are unchanged, though they are transit deserts. Please be honest with the public. We deserve all of the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Robert Whitaker, and then Andy Pollack over Zoom.
Hi, good morning, President Davey and members of the committee. My name is Robert Whitaker. I'm a local 100 transit bus operator in City, New York. That's probably one of the many titles that I have. One of them is also a New York City Community Board stakeholder. And while the Bronx redesign, as you can hear, may have issues, we seem to be behind on the Brooklyn bus redesign, where I know it's coming soon. But recently, in one of my committees, it seems like DOT has spoken with MTA buses about things that are coming for the bus redesign that the public and neither the stakeholders know anything about. So I implore you to get it out early, because I know we're behind because of the pandemic, but that shouldn't mean we don't have the same timetable in order to vet the changes that are coming. Last month I came here and I said to you, decisions by the board and the management affect both employees and the community. Well, bus redesign is one, is the community and bus operators, but bus operator safety, as you know, is a big thing now. I mean, not like the safety of New York City Transit is safe right now, but employees and public. But bus operators seem like they've been hung out to dry, like they've been left behind. All we hear is subways, subways, subways. From partitions that don't lock to partitions that make it as a trap. You know what? It's time for you to protect the employees as much as just saying the public safety and public employees. You got to come down and actually see from our point of view what happens. The new radio system that's being implemented across the city is going to make us even less safe while we're talking to a computer and not actually on the phone constantly with what happens. It's time to come down and see it from our perspective for both for your employees' safety and also the public. Without the employees being safe, the public certainly is not safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andy Pollack, followed by Charlton D'Souza, both remote.
Good morning, members of the New York City Transit Committee, and good morning, President Richard Davey. So let's get into what I want to talk about this month. The first issue that needs to be talked about is the dangerous subway surfing incidents that have been reported recently. I know there was an incident that happened at 111th Street, and I'm just going to say right now that whoever is doing this, you are basically endangering yourself. You are endangering the passengers. You're costing the MTA time and money by doing this. So I just want to mention that I'm very grateful that we have Transit District 20 doing recent patrols at Jackson Heights Roosevelt, Jamaica 179th Street, and at Flushing Main Street recently from what I've been seeing the past couple of weeks riding the subway system. Next thing I want to discuss is the staffing shortages. These staffing shortages, once again, are getting out of hand. I'll give one example. One particular date I will go into, June 14th, that was a Tuesday. The 1:45 p.m. QM5 did not run because of operator availability. Then let's go to June 21st. The 2:03 p.m. Q46 bus from Long Island Jewish did not show up. Guess what? Operator availability. So I saw that 150 bus leave last Tuesday. So the staffing shortages issue needs to be addressed as well, because people are on tight schedules, and especially if they're running late to doctor's appointments, for an example, that is just not acceptable. And the last thing I want to discuss is the Queens Bus Redesign. I am very devastated from reading the plan. The Q30 bus route is at risk of being eliminated.
Your time has expired.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good 4th of July, and I'll give more comments another time.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Charlton D'Souza, followed by Murray Bowden.
Good morning, everyone. This is Charlton D'Souza, president of Passengers United. And I was in the Bronx yesterday. I rode the Q50. I went to the hub at Fordham Road, and I was not happy with what I saw. What did I see? People were asking the bus drivers questions, and the bus drivers were doing a great job. But where were the customer ambassadors? I didn't see them yesterday. And I have an issue with that. And I'm not happy with the Q50 service, because you have buses running every 30 minutes on Saturday and Sunday. What happens if they get stuck in traffic? And you need more service. If you're going to make people go to Pelham Bay Park, you need at least buses running every 20 minutes. And then it gets even better. Saturday, I was on the queue, as in Quincy train at 34th Street, and a person fainted and was passed out for almost 40 minutes. Where were the police? Nowhere to be found. People called 911. The train crew was waiting for 40 minutes for the police to arrive at 34th Street, Herald Square. Yet again, another mishap. So I need the NYPD to make 34th Street, Herald Square, and West 4th Street a permanent police post. There should be at least 1 or 2 police officers there 24 hours a day. Those 2 stations are just problems, and we need to get that fixed. And as far as the J train, Long Island Railroad cross honoring, please make sure you're putting digital signs on the buses, making announcements, because I don't see any digital signage. I don't see any announcements being made on buses. And what y'all could do is on the MTA bus time app, Sarah Meyer, if you could put that the LIRR is cross honoring Metro cards, that would be great. So when people put in the Q110 bus, they can see it right there. That would save people a lot of time. So that needs to be done. And again,
I'm sorry, your time has expired.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker will be Murray Bowden, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Sometimes we get so caught up with ourselves we forget to look at the other things. This is my old coffee cup. I've recycled it to a water bottle. I see a few water bottles up there today for a number of reasons. One, you got to create the plastic. You got to dispose of the plastic. It is the responsibility of this board to ban plastic water bottles in this building. I was at the Bronx Botanical Gardens the other day. Such a picture, there are no plastic bottles there. So times are changing. And you missed the little things, Richard. You've done a great job with the buses and everything, but the lines on the road were designed 50 years ago. They're not appropriate for today. If you give drivers clear instructions, the yellow line on the left, the white line on the right, you know, when a light turns green, everybody's sitting there because they're doing their texting. That's reality. Reality are the lines on the road haven't been fixed. I spoke about it at Bridges and Tunnels this morning. It's illegal and stupid. Every accident you cause, you slow your buses down. The lines on the left should be all yellow, and where the snowplow goes, they got this little jaggedy in there. That was designed when speeds were 35 miles an hour, not the speeds we have today. You want to fix something? Fix the road lines. You'll increase your bus speeds by a certain percentage. You'll reduce accidents. That's safety. And safety counts. Glad to see you here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Lisa Daglian, followed by Jean Ryan over Zoom.
Hi, good morning. I'm Lisa Daglian, the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. There's been a lot of transit news lately, most of it great for riders. Faster subways on the 2, 3, 4, and 5, better buses in the Bronx thanks to the redesign, and more protection for transit workers with new legislation being signed today that will keep this critical workforce safer, and that's good for all of us. Of course, the new accessibility projects that were announced last week, the agreement, and we'll talk more about that in the Capitol Committee later today. In addition, the mayor and MTA recently held their first Transit Improvement Summit with the intention of improving subways and buses for riders, and we couldn't be happier. This groundbreaking partnership will improve travel experiences for millions of New Yorkers who rely on buses, the engines of equity, with 150 more miles of bus lanes and busways over the next 4 years, expansion of automated enforcement in TSP, and the installation of 50 additional fixed bus lane cameras, with the MTA matching this commitment by expanding the ABLE program. We'll also see more countdown clocks at subway stations, stormwater resiliency investments, in collaboration to expand initiatives such as Freedom Ticket and City Ticket for Metro North and LARR riders, and the city's Fair Fare program, contributing to a more equitable system. Riders also need a safe system. We're glad the MTA and city plan to build on their partnership in the Safe Subway Plan to address quality of life issues. However, last week's Supreme Court ruling to reverse concealed carry laws left us quite alarmed. After the spate of recent shootings, riders have made it clear they would not feel safer or comfortable with people more easily bringing guns into the transit system. We agree. The state, city, and MTA should continue to ban guns in the system and continue to fight against ghost guns and other illegal weapons in transit. We're encouraged that the governor, mayor, legislature, and council are poised to pass laws emphasizing this ban and urge them to designate the entire transit system as a sensitive place. We'll join you in this fight to keep all riders safe, to provide equitable, reliable, and efficient service across our city and MTA region. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jean Ryan, followed by Alita Dupree, both over Zoom.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I'm Jean Ryan, President of Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York. Congratulations to the MTA as well as to our lawyers, DRA and Shepard Mullen, as well as the plaintiffs for working on and signing this settlement to make 95% of the stations have elevators by 2055. Now on to Access Ride. Why is it okay to outsource paratransit services when you don't outsource the bus and subway services. I wonder if Access-Ride can ever provide reliable service when it's outsourced. We are concerned that in an emergency, people with mobility disabilities, especially wheelchair users, and people who cannot do steps will be left behind, because 75 to 80% of people on Access-Ride are in broker service, which is private companies contracting with private bases who contract with individual contract drivers who don't have to come to work. How could we be evacuated in an emergency? Drivers can do what they want. If we can't get a taxi in the rain, how are we going to be evacuated in an emergency? Lastly, Access-Ride scheduling is abysmal. We can try to schedule a pickup for 2 p.m., say, and get a pickup time for anywhere from an hour before or an hour after or later. It's almost impossible to plan our day and do more than one or two things by taking Access-Ride. We've been repeatedly promised better scheduling ever since I started taking Access-Ride in 1994. Please fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next and final speaker is Alita Dupree over Zoom.
Thank you again to the chair. Alita Dupree, for the record, my pronouns are she and her. Always good to be back with you. I'm going to talk about transit. You know, you can never have enough subway, and I hope to be back in New York soon, as I keep saying, to ride on the subway. I am pleased about the ADA settlement, but that should just be the beginning. I think we should aim to do 50 stations a year and get ADA done sooner, because I want full participation on our system. And I think we got to continue working on our Omni. I hope to hear an Omni report, ensuring the full participation of reduced fare users to be able to use Omni in its fullest, because I don't want to have any more damaged MetroCard stories, and I don't want to have to pay full fare when I come back to New York in order to participate in Omni. So we got to keep working on that. And how do we build a subway and a bus system that operates on renewable energy? And a lot of this, I think, is shelf ready. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think it can happen sooner rather than later. And I think we should have a power content label for the subway and the buses, like BART in California does, that has a little pie chart that tells us how much of the subway's energy comes from renewables. I'm not an expert on power authority contracting, but I think much of the power comes from a gas-fired power plant in Queens, because it's something where the power authority uses that to serve NYC governmental customers. So I look forward to your reports today of this subway that is a legendary and stately American institution. Thank you.
Thank you to all the speakers for your participation and comments. This concludes the public comment session.
Thank you, everyone. Before I ask for a motion to accept the May minutes, I just wanted to personally welcome the new board members, Sharif Solomon, Lisa Sorin, Frankie Miranda, and I think Midori is probably inside, but welcome. Looking forward to working with you to make our transit system that much better. So let's get down to business. Can I have a motion? Before I have a motion, I need to ask Andrew. Yes, Andrew.
Thank you, Haida. On page 26, there's a reference to the new tactile warning strips that have been completed, and it says the southbound platform at 50th Street C and E. As they arrive on different platforms, does that imply that both platforms were done, or is it only one of them? That's the first thing. If it's both of them, it should say platforms. And just below that, it refers to work at Parsons Archer, and Archer is spelled U-R instead of E-R.
Okay. So that being said, can I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended? David, second? All those in favor? Aye? Against? Okay. Motion moved. Okay, let's, Rich, are there any changes to the work?
No changes to the work plan.
Okay, can you start us off with the presentation?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And also want to welcome the new board members. We in Transit look forward to working with you and also tapping your knowledge and expertise to help us move the agency forward. So again, welcome. Some of you have heard me say this before, perhaps the new members haven't. Customer service is our North Star. It is our most important KPI in transit. And to that end, the old customer success playbook will no longer be enough to keep our customers happy and coming back, particularly in the post-pandemic era. An entirely new school of thought is emerging. Transit strives to become the beacon in the industry as the best-in-class, customer-focused transit system, setting the new standards for quality delivery that exceeds the expectations of our customers. In turn, there is a transit performance reporting revolution that's focused less on inputs and more on maximizing our results and strengthening our relationship with our customers. On-time performance and mean distance between failures, while valuable, are inputs to tell us where we can adjust operations, but those measures don't always accurately tell the whole story about how we've been effectively, or not, as the case may be, serving our customers. Increased customer satisfaction and measuring what matters will be our focus in the coming months. Beginning next month, you will hear the transit team refer to improvements in customer journey time, improved communications during service disruptions, and concrete changes within stations for accessibility and improvement. For example, through our new customer survey results, we know that riders are calling for an improved environment while traveling in our system. In direct response, we have developed a station refresh program beginning with 9 stations that will simultaneously be benefiting from capital improvements through December 2022. You'll hear about that in a later presentation today. The station refreshes will include improvements such as scraping and painting, deep clean floors, stairways, gum removal, thank God, cleaning of benches and trash cans. We'll also be putting tactile warning strips down, improving lighting, and a host of other improvements for our customers. We also have several safety initiatives underway and security initiatives. You may have seen the report last week where we're piloting now cameras on our subway cars. As of last week, we had 65 cars that were outfitted with those. So again, the kinds of tools that we can provide law enforcement to deter and solve crime is critically important. Our customer surveys are also telling us that journey time can be improved. Thanks to the tremendous partnerships, as previously mentioned, JANO, the city, and the MTA reaffirmed our joint commitment for better bus service in a summit with City Hall 2 weeks ago. Delivering on new and enhanced bus lanes will improve customer journey times and improve the overall experience. We will deliver with our partners at NYCT DOT 150 miles of new and improved bus lanes over the next 4 years, and we will be expanding our automated bus lane enforcement, the so-called ABLE enforcement program, to 900 buses by the end of next year, meaning we'll be able to ticket cars that are parked in bus lanes. Also, as mentioned, the reason why Frank is not here today is we are launching our Bronx Bus Redesign, which we are very excited about. I know a gentleman raised some concerns before. I would want to note that this is not a take it or leave it proposition. We will take feedback from our customers over the coming weeks and months, and if we need to make adjustments to that, we will, for sure. But we're very excited for the first real, not just refresh, but redesign in decades in the Bronx. I've been spending a lot of time in the Bronx, by the way. The staff have told me I need to get out and show some love to the other boroughs, which I will be doing. But I was out in the Bronx this morning myself to see how things were going, and it was going quite well so far. We're also continuing to engage in stakeholder engagement, obviously, to get feedback to make sure we're improving. My office and the shared services teams have held several productive meetings with our accessibility advocates, including Jean Ryan, who is a force. I've had a chance to meet her a couple times already. Very much appreciate and respect her opinion, and we'll look forward to continue to work with her on things like Assessor Ride, as she mentioned earlier, as well as the transit advocate community, representing different points of view and where we can improve. Again, excited about that. And then Transit Talks we kicked off just last week, which was myself and the senior team at Transit out at 138th Street on the 6th to talk to customers, hear what they're doing, hear what they're seeing, and how we can improve. We didn't choose that station randomly. It is one of the most underperforming stations that we've heard from our customers. They are the least satisfied, so we wanted to see it ourselves and see how we could improve. So we're super excited to, again, get this kind of input and act upon it. Lastly, Madam Chair, I do want to make a couple of notes about some incidents we've had in our system in the last few weeks. First, we had a dragging incident on June 15th, which ended in of a customer losing his life. So in response to that incident, it was on the Avenue M station on the Q line, resulting in the death of our customer. I asked the Office of System Safety to investigate the facts of this case. And while an investigation is going on, what I can share with you is that on June 15th at approximately 11:50 p.m., an eyewitness reported to a station agent on duty at the Avenue M station that he observed a male customer dragged by a northbound Q train as it departed the station, which resulted in the individual falling on the track. The eyewitness returned to the platform and then observed a following train about 2.5 minutes later strike the customer, and unfortunately, he passed away. We are looking at the video surveillance, which was on the platform. We are looking at all, all potential reasons for this, human factors. We'll receive an autopsy report. We're reviewing our rules and regulations. Pending the findings, we may have recommendations, but I wanted to assure the board and the public that we will investigate this and come back to you all with findings. I also want to make mention of a young man who was surfing last week on a train and was critically injured. He is not the first young person to be doing this in our system. In fact, we have hundreds of recorded incidents that this has occurred in our system in the last few weeks, or few months, I should say. I am going to implore anyone who is watching this to tell your kids, to tell your friends, do not do this. You're not only going to potentially injure yourself, as this poor young man did, you're delaying trains and you're putting yourself in harm's way. Please, please, please do something else with your time. But surfing is dangerous. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rich. Any questions for Rich? Okay. If not, we'll move on to Demetrius. Update us on subways. Good morning, Demetrius.
Morning, Heather. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm pleased to report continued improvements in subway performance, especially among our customer-focused metrics. Customer journey time performance, or the percentage of customers who arrive at their destinations on time, rose to 83.9%, a month-over-month gain of 0.4% improvement from May of 2019. Since last month, the average customer experienced both less additional wait time and less additional travel time riding on board trains. Compared to pre-pandemic levels, customers saved 15 seconds in additional journey time. These results are supported by our operational metrics. There were just 35 major incidents this month, 1 fewer than last year and 13 fewer than May of 2019. Mean distance between failure for cars was just under 156,000 miles, almost 20,000 miles higher than pre-pandemic levels. This is a result of speeding up our SMS overhaul program and developing a reliability program addressing door issues on older fleets. Elevator and escalator availability rose by 0.2% and 1.7% respectively since last month due to our increased focus on preventative maintenance and shortening repair times. Our on-time performance was 82.5%, 0.1% higher than last month. While efforts have been successful in delivering better service to our customers, Subways is focused on areas where more improvement is needed. For example, we remain focused on addressing the effects of crew shortages on our system. In May, we averaged 372 delays per day due to crew availability, or 4.6% of scheduled service. While this was a setback from the prior month, it's remained significantly better than December of 2021, where we were delaying roughly 632 trains per day. We are continuing to follow the same playbook of accelerating hiring and training efforts, including bringing back recent retirees to operate trains, bringing back retirees to train folks, and ensuring that no stone is left unturned to making crews available for service. Finally, as Rich mentioned, I'd like to share an update on the pilot program to put cameras on board subway cars. Earlier this month, Subway installed cameras in 65 cars towards a goal of 100 on select lines across the system. The cameras are currently operational and can retrieve security footage in the event of an incident on board the train. I look forward to assessing the results of that pilot with my team, which will inform us on how to roll out the program, making our system as safe as possible and as secure as possible. I continue to be proud of the Subway's teams for not only delivering strong service to our customers, but also targeting areas for continued improvement on our gains. Thank you.
Thank you, Demetrius. Any questions for Demetrius? Midori.
Hi, Demetrius. Thank you. So I'm looking at page 58 of the committee book, and you mentioned crew shortages. I see weekday delays. 26% of all weekday trains are delayed due to crew shortages, and so that number really jumped out at me. So I'm wondering, outside of kind of what you're doing now, how do you track the performance of the hiring, and when do you think we can kind of be out of this phase where we are continuing to have crew shortages?
Thank you. All right, great. So definitely experiencing a high. No question, it's been a challenge for us. We've been working directly with HR on a recurring basis on hiring. We've had some challenges, particularly in retaining folks, particularly in the train operator title. We've had some challenges also with the civil service, with the list that we had to recertify a list that was out. But I think the adjustments that we've made in bringing back some of the retirees, like for example, for the month of June, we have a class of over plus 100 train operators in class. So being able to take this infusion of retired folks and try to make adjustments. Now, the hope is that those folks will stay on, and all that we put into training them. But the challenge is we plan to have all of these classes successfully complete their training, but often it does not end up being the case. So we are, even with all of the forecast, even with a percentage forecasted to have dropped out, we're still forecasting to be in our pre-pandemic levels by second quarter of 2023.
Midori, I think Rich wants to add to that.
And so appreciate the question. On the flip side, we're kicking off an employee availability campaign as well. So not only looking to bring in new folks, but I would say from what I've seen, there's probably a higher percentage than you would want of folks out of work for whatever reasons. And so whether that's workers' compensation, whether that's sick leave is trued up in May, as I'm told, and so you see probably a disproportionate amount of folks out on sick leave in the first 2 months of May and June as an example. But really looking hard at employee availability, I think, is another key piece for us. So it's two sides of the coin. It's our employees and making sure we can get them to work, and then new classes that are obviously required as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Demetrius? Norman.
Yeah, Demetrius, to what extent is residual COVID effects creating more availability problems for you? I mean, are people still testing negative and laying out in large numbers? Have you been tracking that? Is that still a number?
So we still have a requirement for people to report when they test. When they test positive. So we have been tracking it. We have not seen a huge increase in the COVID positive cases, but we have seen an increase in sick overall. So that could be for any number of reasons, but we can see that it's trending in a direction that we do not like.
Thank you.
Frankie.
Good morning. You mentioned 65 cars that have been now have cameras. That means that you have one camera per car. And what would be the goal of how many cameras are you expecting to do in this pilot?
So it's actually 2 cameras per car, and that is 65 cars with 2 cameras in them. So the goal was to start with a pilot. These were the first units that we put out. This is not a programmed program, which we went through the capital program in order to fund. So it is a pilot of 100 cars to see whether or not it even works. I mean, we're not sure with whether or not a moving whether or not a moving car tying into the system will work. But so far, we've got really, really positive results from what we're seeing.
Andrew.
Sorry, just to follow up to that, Demetrius. with 2 cameras per car, does that mean 100% of the car is covered?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Demetrius? If not, oh, Midori, go ahead.
Demetrius, so I have a question on these cameras. So where do the feeds go to? Is it the rail control center? Is it a terminal dispatch location? Who's actually like monitoring these feeds, and do they get to monitor 24/7?
So before I answer you, it's 100% inside the car, nothing outside. So just to confirm. So right now they're not being monitored live. It is being stored within the device itself.
Any other questions for Demetrius? Okay. As Rich told us before, Frank is at the Bronx Bus Redesign. He joined the first rush hour. If anybody has any questions, you can refer to his executive summary. So we'll move on to Chris.
Thanks. Good morning, Ada.
Good morning, Chris.
We are pleased to announce at Paratransit the extension of Phase 1 of the eHail on-demand pilot for 1,200 of our excessive ride customers until December 2022. With the new leadership in place here at New York City Transit and at Paratransit, this extension will provide us with time to collaborate with our customers and advocates to develop the structure of what a Phase 2 would look like. In addition, we are extending our contingency recovery rides program contract through June 2023. This program equips our Paratransit Command Center with an important tool to deal with the dynamic conditions of paratransit, dispatching rides to customers should their pre-scheduled trip fail for any reason. Over the next year, we will be putting together an RFP process to make the contingency recovery rides a permanent program. Now on to performance. In April, overall performance remained stable as weekday ridership continues to grow since January, with average weekday trips now exceeding 80% of pre-COVID levels at over 25,000 trips per day. Total trips completed in April increased by 9.4% over the previous year. Despite the increase in ridership during April, our broker service no-show performance achieved better than goal at 2.95 for the first time since August 2021. Performance for the 30-minute window also improved and achieved 94%, which is slightly under the goal of by 1%. Driver incentives in place since December continue to help increase driver availability, helping us meet the increase in travel demand. Now on primary carrier service, the 30-minute pickup window for on-time performance declined slightly last month and is at slightly below goal at 94% for April. No shows per 1,000 scheduled trips was at 1.7 per 1,000 trips, still better than the goal of 3.0. Our carrier service continues to endure industry-wide shortages, however, and we are working closely with our carriers on creative ways to maintain and ideally increase driver availability. Our call center performance during the month of April achieved 93%, which is slightly below the goal of 95%. Our call center did experience some challenges due to staffing shortages, the increase in demand, and on-street traffic issues during this month. In April, we also saw an increase in the number of eligible customers from 167 to 169,000, which is a 4.1% increase from a year ago, month over month year ago. And this concludes the paratransit report.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Great. Okay. If not, we'll move on to Q to give us our update on accessibility. Morning, Q.
Good morning, Hayden. Thank you all. I'd like to start by wishing everyone a happy Pride Month. Shout out to our members in our LGBTQ plus community.
Thank you for doing that, Chris. We forgot.
Though I like to say that every day is Pride Month here at the MTA. We have a truly historic update for the committee today. Last week, we announced an agreement between the MTA and accessibility advocates that reaffirms the MTA's commitment to subway accessibility and provides a clear path and timeline to get us there. Under this legal agreement, the MTA is committed to keeping up the pace of accessibility upgrades until we make more than 95% of the subway and Staten Island Railway stations fully accessible. This agreement reflects our mission to enhance accessibility throughout the subway system at an accelerated pace, and our commitment to do so in partnership with our riders, especially our riders with disabilities, who have waited for too long for this. I am proud to be part of the team that made this agreement happen, and to continuing the work to make our systems accessible for all our riders. This is a moment we deserve to celebrate, but also one where we remember colleagues who fought so hard for this achievement, but are not here to share it with us. In particular, I remember Edith Prentice a peerless advocate for transit access, and a personal friend and mentor who helped bring me to the MTA. She was a founding member of our active committee, and there was no stronger voice for subway accessibility than Edith. I wish she had been here to see the path we are on now. I also want to remember our colleague from the MTA legal department, Peter Sistrom, who worked tirelessly on this agreement and sadly passed away last year before we could bring this to fruition. We are so grateful for their work, and we miss them each day. Getting to system-wide accessibility will take this entire village and then some. I want to thank my colleagues in Transit and C&D who understand their roles in making this commitment come to life, and a special shout out to my team, whose work enhanced the lived experience of New Yorkers with disabilities every day. On Wednesday, at our board meeting, I'll be joined by my colleague Tim Mulligan from our C&D team in presenting to the board with a more detailed on the path forward towards system-wide accessibility, as well as how this historic agreement builds on the investment in our capital plan. We look forward to continuing to work with colleagues across the agencies and with the advocates to begin to make this agreement a reality. Next month, I'll return to my regularly scheduled updates on topics like elevator replacements, tactile warning strips on subways, and our bus stroller working group. You can find updates on some of these topics from last month in my written remarks. Thank you.
Congratulations, Q. As a young girl who grew up right down the block from the Middletown train station, which was the station that brought this whole case many moons ago. I'm proud that we've gotten to this moment. So congrats to you and your team. Any questions for Q? Okay. If not, we'll move on to Sarah for an update on strategy and customer experience. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. So really happy to report that in May, we managed to improve the accuracy of bus arrival trip information, releasing a new back-end API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. It's what connects Google to us, what connects us to other apps that our passengers are using. So it prevents canceled buses from appearing as arrivals on the MTA website and in the GTFS RT feed that third-party applications use to show our trip arrivals. The feature is currently live for routes in the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And during this time when we've been talking about increased issues with bus operator availability, it's extremely important that our bus arrival information is accurate. And to our chagrin, we realized that there really was no way to delete canceled trips out of the API, because once we would delete them, they would disappear forever, which certainly is not something we want to happen. So my thanks and kudos to departments across the MTA for working together to bring this new technology to our apps and to our GTFS feeds. We also expect to include Staten Island in the future as well. Staten Island has a different way of doing bus dispatching, and we're working with the road ops team in Staten Island to see if we can bring this feature to the apps and the website. It's interesting because in Staten Island they refill the routes very quickly, and we want to make sure that we're not canceling routes and canceling bus trips before they're filled by bus operators from other depots. So that has a particular interesting hook that we'll keep working through. Also happy to see continual gains from our new contact center technology. In May, incoming telephone calls increased by 19% compared to this time last year, but calls answered rate increased to 94%. Despite the rise in demand, the new system enables our agents to keep up, keeping customer wait time down to 101 seconds. And this is a 60% reduction from last year. So my kudos to the teams who are working from the 11th floor of 2 Broadway who are answering all of these calls. Consistent with ridership increases, we're seeing more activity on social media as well, with a 52% increase in mentions compared to this time last year in 2021. Responses also had a dramatic increase with over 12,000 responses sent. My thanks to the team at the RCC in Midtown Manhattan for really working very hard around the clock 24/7 to get those responses out to people who are looking for their trains and buses. We also hosted 2 Omni help desk events this month. one at 149th Street and 3rd Avenue, and the other at Atlantic Barclays. Both were extremely busy stations, and we were really happy to meet with and hear our customers' responses to the Omni system and learn how we could do better with communicating about the technology and learn more from our customers on what they're looking for to make transactions easier as well. As President Davey mentioned, we also kicked off our first series of Transit Talk events, meeting with customers and directly engaging with them on site at 3rd Avenue, 138th Street on the 6th line. And we'll definitely have more events scheduled in the coming weeks. Happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions for Sarah? Midori?
Hi, Sarah. A question for you. So really excited about the fare capping pilot, and I think, there's data that people are compiling around that. So that's really great. I had thought that at some point there was going to be paratransit integration with Omni. Maybe Chris or Kumel wants to talk about that, but what's going on there, and when can we expect some discussion on that?
Right, didn't we talk about this last month?
Oh,
We
okay.
did. Right,
Apologies.
That's okay.
I missed last month's meeting then,
That's
so
okay.
I'll go in those minutes and take a look. So thank you.
All right.
And just to kind of follow up on Kumel, real big shout out to Peter Sistrom. I hadn't realized that he passed, so it's so sad to hear about that. And Edith, who I also got the privilege to work with in the disability community and at the Taxi Limousine Commission. So it's a really amazing month for you all and the incredible work you've done.
You're welcome. Okay. If any more questions for Sarah? If not, we'll move on. Oh, yes. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, Sarah. Quick question. You were speaking about 149th Street. You had a meeting with the group. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how the information got out regarding Omni?
Sure. So we have been working doing various Omni help desks. So basically having personnel in transit vests, lots of brochures. We give out information on fair fares. We're also giving information out on the Omni retail network. So giving customers who use cash the ability to understand and learn how that future model might work using an Omni card and then refilling it right now at our retail network. So that includes bodegas, Walgreens, lots of retail chains. In the future, starting in the fall, we'll have vending machines that will be installed in every station fare array. And that's how cash customers would use the Omni system. So it's a little confusing right now. And so we're really excited to be in the station talking to customers one-on-one about this, as well as teaching customers about how to enable their mobile wallet or to look into their wallet and look at their credit cards. A lot of customers we've found don't realize they have contactless cards already and that they could use those cards to use Omni. So just doing more one-on-one outreach so that we can get the message out. As much as I hope our digital screen signage reaches everybody, it doesn't. So getting to people one-on-one.
Thank you so much for that.
On this, in the contactless wallet, if you've got multiple cards there, how does the credit card know I'm supposed to be used again so I can take advantage of the fare capping? I mean, it's not something I use.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we're working on with our messaging, but you have to use the same card or the same phone in order to reach and in order to take advantage of fare capping. And it's that nuance that if you use the card and then use a phone with the same card, that will count as two devices. So you definitely need to use the same card or phone those 12 times in order to get to Lucky 13.
I saw a family last week at Grand Central struggling with the MetroCard machine, and I approached them. I said, "Do you have a card with a chip on it?" And the guy said, "Yes." I said, "Just go there and do it." And he was so happy. We couldn't stop thanking me because it was so much easier than the machine.
Definitely. I think we suffer from our own success sometimes here because the
too
MetroCard
simple,
brand,
right.
but the MetroCard brand, especially for tourists and for people from out of town, they want that card, right? They want the Metro card, and they haven't really learned about Omni yet. So we've tried a lot of different things with signage in the stations. You'll actually see there's signage on the MVM machines, both in print and in digital, but we're still not getting all the way through, which is why that customer ambassador, that one-on-one, touch is really important.
Well, I only batted 500 because there was another family also struggling, but they refused to listen, and they said, we're going to buy Metro cards. I said, okay.
Andrew.
Sarah, is there a time limit on multiple swiping with Omni?
Yes.
Is it the same as it was with MetroCard?
It is the
Okay,
same. I believe
thanks.
it's 11 minutes. 15 minutes.
Any other questions for Sarah? Okay, if
Thank
not,
you.
you're welcome, Sarah. Thank you for that thorough update. We'll move on to Bobby Deal for the security update.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to all the new board members. I'm going to start off with subway customer accidents, which the rate has actually decreased when comparing the most recent 12-month period to the previous one. Bus collisions and collision injuries increased, while customer accidents decreased slightly when comparing that 12-month period. To address some of these instances, the Department of Buses is distributing division-specific newsletters to all depots in order to communicate the high priority that safety has in everyday operations, while also increasing safety talks. Employee lost time accidents decreased when comparing the most recent 12-month period to the previous one. In regard to subway fires, when comparing the figures from the two most recent 12-month periods, subway fires have increased. It is worth noting that we have seen a month-over-month decrease for the past 3 months, though. We contribute that to a lot of the cleaning and the vacuum train that's coming up. There is debris. We continue to review these statistics with the Department of Subways, with whom 91.6 of the fires in May were of low severity, meaning no disruption to service. So with that, before any questions, I'm going to go hand it over to Chief Wilcox to give the crime report first.
Good morning, everybody. So as we move into the summer months, we can see the ridership is noticeably growing. Yesterday afternoon, I was riding on the trains and saw large and exuberant crowds on the trains and in the stations in the area of the Pride Parade, particularly West 4th Street. Our transit officers were also there, keeping those riders safe. This year, we are still experiencing total increases in major crimes categories of around 54% when compared to the crime numbers we saw last year at this time, when the ridership levels were far less. As more riders return to the subway system, we are definitely seeing an increase in the crime of grand larceny and property-related crimes. We have seen increases in hand snatches, primarily cell phones, but also some neck chains as well, and increases in possible pickpocket incidents. One such area that I really want to bring particular awareness to is the significant increase we are seeing in larceny incidents on the overnight and midnight hours. During the pandemic, when ridership was down and when the subways were closed on the late night hours, this issue was significantly reduced, but it has now definitely returned. Incidents where riders sometimes fall asleep on a moving train and then later wake up, often well past their intended stop, to then find items missing from them or their bags that they were carrying or had next to them are now gone. This type of crime has increased over 200% so far this year and accounts for more than 1/4 of our total grand larceny picture so far. We are focusing on this type of crime. Our detectives are investigating these crimes, but we also ask riders to be more vigilant in this area when they travel the trains late at night. Our determination to fight this overall crime increase in our subways has not wavered. Total arrests in transit are up 60%. Felony arrests are up over 40%. Misdemeanor arrests are up 68%. Arrests for cutting weapons are up over 105%. Arrests for sex crime-related type incidents such as forcible touching are up over 36%. And we have started to now see some positive indicators recently. For the last 5 weeks, we have seen a daily crime average that is less than 6 crimes a day, which is below pre-pandemic daily figures going back several years. We have also seen a year-to-date reduction in overall hate crimes of 7%. Another aspect that is not diminished is our commitment to the vitally important concept, and I've said this before, of uniformed train patrols to enhance our presence, to increase our visibility on the trains. We know that so far in 2022, around 53% of our major crime incidents are occurring on the train. We are constantly working on ways to maximize our train patrols throughout the day, every day. Our transit officers have done over 176,000 train patrols throughout the city this year. Also, in little over a month, our new train patrol force, the TPF, has done nearly 1,500 train patrols during the overnight hours. Last week saw the 3-month mark of our subway safety task force, which we created and deployed back in middle March. This task force patrols the subways 7 days a week to help our transit commands with significant quality of life and homeless concerns. In this short 3-month period, the Subway Safety Task Force, under the direction of Captain Tin Mai, have made nearly 5,000 homeless contacts and taken or referred over 1,700 persons to shelter. Very important work. With this in mind, we continue to work daily on our coordinated and collaborative initiatives to address homelessness in the subways, and we are committed to this effort. A great deal of work has gone into this, work that puts emphasis on connecting the homeless in our subways to service, getting them medical attention when needed, connecting them to dedicated professionals in that area that we have partnered with, such as the Bowery Residents Committee, or BRC, and hopefully getting them to safe haven and to long-term shelter placement. Some of the homeless that the NYPD and the MTA police officers have been able to connect to service during our operations this year are still at that place of shelter and have not returned to the streets and subways. We're proud of that, but we also know that much more work to be done, and that mission continues. The school year has now come to an end, and I want to commend and thank all the school teams from all our transit districts who every school day, with great diligence, with great care and patience, worked hard to keep those kids safe, including mine, particularly during those critical late afternoon hours as the kids were leaving their schools and entering the subways to head home. Graffiti on the outside of train cars, an old and very visible and concern for transit and the NYPD. This has also seen an increase this year. The majority of these incidents are occurring where the trains are stored or laid up overnight or over the weekend. The persons doing it are then quickly posting it on social media sites. Notably, at the end of April, we saw 2 males who had come all the way from France to paint graffiti onto subway cars, being killed near the Sutter and Rutland train station in Brooklyn as they walked on the tracks along the 3 line. Our Transit Citywide Vandal Squad continues to work closely with the MTA Safety and Security to attack this crime condition. And I want to reiterate what President Davey talked about a few minutes ago. This unfortunate trending issue we are seeing in the subways, subway surfing or train surfing. Fueled somewhat by social media postings, we have seen recent incidents of persons, mostly very young, riding on the top of or on the back of train cars. This is incredibly dangerous. As mentioned last week, we saw a 15-year-old kid receive serious injuries to his head when it was struck by an object riding on the top of the 7 train and going into the 111th Street station in Queens. In another incident, at the end of May, we saw a 12-year-old injured while riding on the top of a number 5 train in the Bronx at the 180th Street station. There is nothing fun or funny about this type of activity, and we will continue to work towards deterring it. I have stated earlier in these meetings that we would give greater attention to quality of life issues, and we are doing that. Our quality of life summonses are up 115% since January and up over 190% during the 4 weeks between mid-May to mid-June. We will not take our eye off our efforts to restore a sense of safety, order, and quality of life to our subways. Thank you for your continued support, and I'll take any questions.
Chief, I don't know if this is a question for you or Bobby or Pat. You said graffiti's up, so obviously these guys are getting into the train yards. Aren't our train yards secure?
We're actually finding that the highest increase is in the layup area, in the in-service area. We actually have people walking down in-service areas. And we have been in the process of putting up some cameras in those areas to try to capture. We work very much hand in hand with the NYPD in regards to graffiti and trying to deter.
All right. Jamie, Andrew.
I just have a comment. I want to thank you, Chief Wilcox, and your department and the team who work with you here on an incredible effort, so critical, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Andrew?
I will definitely second that.
Good morning,
For
Andrew.
all the men and women. Good to see you again, Chief. I'm not sure if this is for you, Rich, or for you, Chief, but the new cameras that are installed in 65 cars and hopefully a lot more, how long are those recordings kept, should they need to be referred to?
It's probably a question for Bobby.
Yeah, those are basically on like a 7-day to 8-day loop. That's what they do. It's actually a small card that's inside the camera.
So if you're investigating a crime and it's over 7 days, that film is gone.
That's true. All right, depending. Some of these cameras can hold up to 15 days. It all depends how much video it's actually taken in, to be honest.
Thank you.
Well, I have to say, Andrew, I think at least in my 2 months here, Chief can speak to it. I'm not sure, because these are the deployable cameras we have in the stations. I'm not sure we've run into that issue, given how many cameras we have throughout the system.
Yeah,
but Chief or Bobby may
Yeah,
be able to speak to that.
that's actually true. A lot of times when an incident happens right away, we're able to pull the cameras immediately. And you got to realize the deployable force is a small force contained inside a much larger force, which is our capital camera program, where items are kept for sometimes over 30 days. Okay.
And to their credit, the police have apprehended bad people really quickly, maybe
Yes.
a day after the event. So I'm really impressed with that.
So just when a major crime happens in transit, obviously our commanders, our districts are on it immediately, and we immediately plug our investigators in, our detective bureau, and they're right down the hall from me, the Transit Bureau Detective Bureau Special Investigations Unit. They're right down the hall. Sergeant Mike Dennis, I know him well. He used to work for me when I was in transit before. So the connection is quick and swift, and we want those images. We get them out, and we've had great success with them in all types of cases. I've said this in this meeting during my 9 years in the Detective Bureau. I can't count. It's countless how many times MTA video has proven to be valuable in solving crime.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions for Chief or Bobby? Lisa?
Chief, first of all, thank you for what you do. You said that there's an increase overnight and late night hours for bigger crimes. What type
Grand
of
larcenies.
what type of enforcement do you find changes? Do you put more manpower? Is there a change when you know that specific time is coming about?
So it definitely happens on the overnight. So one of the dual purposes of the Train Patrol Force, the TPF that we've created, they work those hours, 8 p.m. to 4:30 in the morning. So part of their job is also to be out there highly visible, but they're also trying to correct conditions. And if they see a sleeping passenger, they will wake them up. We also get information, intelligence out to our officers in the districts, in the TPF, those working in the overnight. So we know who might be out there working. We know who our recidivists are that do this type of crime. And if we see them, again, it goes back to using sometimes MTA video. If we capture them out there, we immediately send out an alert throughout the system, throughout our districts that, hey, we've seen this person walking this platform at this time of day. So, we're very focused on this, and we know the recidivists, and we're trying to be, definitely abate this problem.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We now have a couple of presentations. First, we're going to hear from Dana Hike, C&D's Senior Vice President of Infrastructure, who tell us about the reconstruction work on the B and D lines. And then we'll hear from Glenn London, Operations Planning, who'll brief us on service changes. And finally, Demetrius will talk about the station refresh that Rich mentioned before. Dana, you want to start us off?
Sure, and thank you. And again, I'd also like to welcome the new board members. And although this was listed really as 3 separate presentations, I would like to note that it really is one, and it's an example of how we're all collaborating to ensure seamless approach to how we are addressing fixing our infrastructure, customer experience as well. So the Concourse Line Component Repair Project is part of an ongoing program that allows New York City Transit to address necessary concrete and steel defects, and along with water infiltration in a timely and cost-efficient manner of our aging infrastructure. This also is done while minimizing the customer impacts of a more extensive reconstruction project. Projects like this, they're paramount to enhancing the reliability of our system. This particular project that we're going to speak about today was awarded in December of last year, and it is anticipated to be substantially complete by March of 2023. The scope of the repairs on this 89-year-old B&D line, which I'd like to say I gave the Bronx some love yesterday as well and was rewarded with a wonderful Yankee comeback. Thought it was going to be a second no-hitter, but and this our project, the scope runs from 161st Street to Bedford Park Boulevard. Also, as you can see on the slide, the project will repair or replace steel beams and columns. It will also address cracked and spalled concrete, eliminate areas of water infiltration through chemical grouting, and as we all know that something as simple as the elimination of water infiltration is critical to the preservation of our system. This contract will also be improving drainage, again, same line as water infiltration, keeping water off of our concrete and steel will prolong the life. We will also be looking to remove or replace antennas and power cables where we find that necessary. This contract will also address the repair of street level vents, which I will discuss in a following slide. I'm now going to show some photos of examples of conditions that we have seen on the concourse. So this slide, it illustrates corrosion of beams and columns, and it clearly shows the importance of this contract. Again, where necessary, structural steel will be replaced, and where not warranted, the steel repairs will be done. Also, rebar that is embedded in concrete and that is exposed and compromised will be replaced through this contract. Concrete. So this slide focuses on the concrete and illustrates the type of concrete conditions that we're seeing throughout. Repairs will consist of repairing the cracks and or chipping out concrete and replacing it with brand new concrete. The picture on the left illustrates conditions under some of the street vents. So when we talk about street vent repairs, we only think of what we see at the street level, which are the steel grates. However, there are structural components for supporting those below, and that's what we will be working with. And again, drainage is part of that with the vents. So the street level vent repairs, some work that you have not seen has begun, surveying work such as that, but you will start to see work within the next month or so, and it will run through the late fall. The street level work accounts for vehicular peak travel patterns on the Grand Concourse between 161st and 192nd Streets. Work is limited in the AM towards Manhattan and in the PM towards the Bronx. Most of the impacts are to the service road and will be staged 3 blocks at a time. And one service lane will be out of service for the 3 blocks staggered. So in other words, you won't see the entire service road impacted. It'll be almost like a moving staged operation. So 3 blocks, and then we would move on to another 3 blocks. We believe it will be approximately about a month at a time to complete the 3 blocks. And there will be no impact on the express roadway. I will now turn it over to Glenn, who's our Deputy Chief of Rail Planning, to discuss service.
Thank you, Dana. And I'll echo the welcome for all the new board members. So let's begin with the service changes. This is an extensive project. It's going to require a lot of access to the tracks to do the work, and it will not be the sort of work that we can just do on the overnights. We're going to have a lot of work on weekends, and we will actually have work that affects service 24/7. So let's start with the weekends. Over a 2-year period, we need to close the Concourse line over 40 weekends north of 161st Street. 15 of those closures are scheduled to take place in 2022. 2 of them have already happened. The third will be happening this coming weekend, which I should point out is a 3-day weekend in which we can get a lot of work done. You're welcome, Dana. And on selected weekends, we will actually be skipping 155th Street in one direction, including this coming weekend in which we'll be skipping 155th Street northbound. So as I said, that's 40 weekends. The D train will only be running between 161st Street and Coney Island. However, the 4 train will be running at its normal operation on all of those weekends. At 161st Street, passengers can transfer between the D and the 4, and D riders are going to be directed to take the 4 train for trips north of 161st Street. For the last stop on the D train, which is not near the 4 line, 205th Street, will be running a shuttle bus, a free shuttle bus, between 205th Street and Mosholu Parkway. As I mentioned, there will also be work on weeknights over the course of the project, so there will be 75 weeks in which we have weeknight work overnight. On those will be more minor impacts, where we'll just be skipping some stations, so a train will run express instead of local in one direction or another between a few stations. Next, please. The big weekend shutdown this coming weekend is going to set us up for a 24/7 closure of the express track. As you know, the Concourse line has a middle express track, and in the morning rush hour, the D train runs express towards Manhattan. In the afternoon rush hour, the D train runs express towards 205th Street. And during the rush hours, the B train, which middays and evenings terminates at 145th Street in Manhattan, is extended to Bedford Park Boulevard. Starting next Tuesday and continuing until December, we will be suspending the express operation. The D train will be making all local stops in both directions on weekdays. This is going to increase the travel time for express riders by 3 to 3.5 minutes. But I will point out that with both D and B trains making all local stops, riders at local stations will actually have shorter wait times. Next, please. I should just point out that we will be going back and doing the same thing for about a month in 2023. Also in 2023, in the summer, we're going to have a more impactful suspension of express service. This is because we have to shut the track segment between Bedford Park Boulevard and 205th Street. So D trains will be only running between Bedford Park Boulevard and Coney Island in both directions, making all local stops. The D rush hour service will be express service will be suspended. And because we will only have limited terminal capacity at Bedford Park Boulevard, the B train service to Bedford Park Boulevard will also be suspended during rush hours. It will only run to 145th Street, between 145th Street and Brighton Beach. Because this is a much more significant impact on our customers, we are looking to do this during the summer months of 2023 when ridership is lowest. We'll also be running a free shuttle bus between 205th Street and Bedford Park Boulevard. Next, please. Finally, I just want to talk about the Yankees, which I know is near and dear to Dana's heart. We have been working very closely with the Yankees and with our government and community relations colleagues to make certain that what we do with this service plan doesn't affect operations to and from Yankee Stadium unnecessarily. Because we have so many weekends in which we have to do work, we have to shut the D line north of 161st Street on days that there are Yankees games or soccer games. But we have set it up in such a way that when there are Yankees games, we can run our normal extra D service that runs from 161st Street south after games. At the same time, we'll be running normal 4 service and running the normal extra 4 service that we run after Yankee games as well. So we are going to also be making certain that everything else on the 4 remains normal when there are the game days. So that is it. And at this point, I want to turn it over to Demetrius to talk about the opportunity to refresh stations during this project.
So President Davey has made it very clear that customer service and customer experience is the North Star for us. And one of the things that we looked at was when we have these major outages where we're already impacting customers, what can we do from our perspective to give them something to come back to? So we looked at these weekends, these particular weekends, 11 weekends, and we took a look at from the customer perspective, what were things that weren't being done during these outages that could be done, which could put a smile on the customer's face. So we looked at painting, lighting, tile repairs, floor repairs, grouting, drains, maintenance work, deep cleaning through the stations. One thing that's important to note is at a lot of these locations, you can't just fix tile because there are leaks that are behind the walls. So Dana talked about the contractors, which will be doing grouting work. Our folks will be in there doing some grouting work as well. And then the hope is to be able to replace some of the tiling so that it's cleaned up, and also to power wash a good portion of the walls. So the last slide gave you an idea of what some of the columns look like. But here are examples of some of the walls that you can see the drain, the stains from water infiltration. We'll be looking to not only fix the grouting, grout to fix the water issues at these locations, but also to replace some of the tiles. What we can power wash will be power washing at these locations. Also, you can see the benches, which have been there for a substantial period of time and have received its fair share of buttocks on them. What we'll be doing is sanding down these benches to get a new fresh topical covering, and then sealing the benches so that they look like new. This is one at Bedford Park Station. Also, we're going to take the opportunity to do some maintenance options. We want to take full advantage of the outage. So some of the issues that customers may not necessarily see, but they certainly feel them, are the impacts of service. So we'll be going in there to do the switch maintenance, looking at what track and components are necessary to be done. We'll be installing some of our equipment will be more resilient than it had been in the past, doing signal repairs, drain line cleaning and repairs. As you can see in this picture here, you'll see a photo of the track work, but you'll also see some water that remains sitting in the trough. We'll take a look at the next slide as well. It'll show you we have certain equipment that we utilize on the tracks itself, which we clean out the muck and debris from the drains. You need track access to do that. So this gives us an opportunity to get in there with our equipment to clean it out, and also the switch and signal maintenance as well, which will again be done during this track outages. So again, this whole emphasis is to set the North Star and to show customers that we do care about their feedback. We want them to have a place that is comfortable, and we want them to come back to transit. So we're shooting for the stars here.
Demetrius, before, Andrew, Demetrius, I have a question. What about what I call like the station approaches, like the steps that lead up or down, the trash cans, like things around the station? So it makes it more appealing to people who want to get up and walk those steps to get up onto that subway track.
Right. So not specifically included in here, but any railings that need to be painted, any safety defects that are noted at the location, railings that are loose. We're also looking at what locations need additional canisters. We've kind of strayed away from adding canisters at the ends of the platform for specific reasons, but it doesn't mean that we can't look for opportunities to place them where they would be a good fit. So we're looking at that as also painting or repainting the ones that are existing if they're not in need of replacement, and replacing those that need to be replaced.
Question, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question regarding the deteriorated concrete beams. Do you know if the beams will be replaced by something more resilient, either in terms of the material or, at a minimum, better concrete cover to the rebar? I mean, it's going to have the same environment, harsh environment again, so we don't want to be back here 10 years from now replacing the beams. I'm just curious. If you don't know the answer, it's fine, or you may, but I'd like an answer to come back to the board if you don't have it handy.
I don't have specific, but in general, we use the most durable and state of, the current products that bring us the most durability. And also that is why a focus of this project is to find the water infiltration, seal that, because that really does prolong the life of the structural elements. But as far as specific materials, I would have to get back on that.
If you can get back to me also on the concrete cover, which is not normally changed in standard design, here it would be a really good bang for the buck. Thank you.
Frankie, Randy, Andrew, Randy.
Thank you. Some of the pictures show significant damage to the infrastructure. Do you think that the plan will go accordingly, or as part of the plan you foresee that once you go in, you're going to find that is more significant damage and that, it will impact the service the way that you have it already planned?
So I started the end of October. And so as far as the experience of the nature of when we go into these types of projects, but in general, having been in this industry for 30 years, these kind of projects, you're always most likely going to find something that you didn't. But I'm assured by the team that as far as the surveys and the pre-work that has been done, that yes, we're confident that the plan as set out, again, I'm sure that it's not 100% that we'll find some unforeseens, but that in general, we're confident in how it's being presented and approached.
So thank you for this presentation. I was waiting to hear Glenn say it, but since he didn't, the most obvious question is, when there is no service on the Concourse line, will there be additional service on the number 4?
We will be operating normal service on the number 4 because we do a lot of work on weekends all over the system. We really cannot add extra service on the 4, but we'll be running our normal service and making certain that we don't cut it back when we're doing the work along the D line.
So you're going to have 2 lines worth of people on 1 line, basically.
On weekends, and we're pretty certain we have the capacity for that. We will, of course, be looking at it.
Thank you.
Sharif. Oh, sorry, Sharif. Randy was first, then you.
Yeah, the Concourse is a particular favorite of mine. It was the line I lived on when I was a kid, and I worked many times with the transit. This is a great presentation. Could you share the PowerPoint with the committee, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a quick question on the resiliency pieces, specifically street level. And I'm not sure if these stations actually, are prone to flooding, but what kind of street level treatments are you planning for these projects?
Wait till
So,
our presentation Wednesday. No, I'm just kidding. We have a presentation on Wednesday, but let me, go ahead, sorry.
no, that's, yeah, my understanding that for this particular project, that it's structural. So the grates are being, it's structural replacement of the piece that you see at the street level and below. Again, though, the drainage underneath will be addressed, drainage pipes and chemical grouting. But as far as the actual street openings and resiliency relative to those types of measures, that is not part of this design.
Sharif, to answer your question, for the last 4 months, 5 months, how long? We've had a resiliency task force. Yeah, 3 months that we put together. Jamie and I were co-chairs. The group is bringing a presentation to the board on Wednesday, so maybe some of your questions will be answered.
That's terrific, and I know that there's been a great partnership between the city and
Yes.
the MTA on this.
Yes.
For many months going.
Yes.
And so if this is one of those priority stations, I'm
Yes.
glad to see it being addressed.
Great.
Thank you.
Midori.
So first, thank you for this presentation. It's wonderful to see kind of capital construction, what you're doing, and then how that impacts planning. So it's wonderful to see service planning here. Glenn, thank you so much. I wanted to, so first, like, commend this, I don't know what the label of it's called, but Demetrius, adding on these very specific scopes for maintenance, especially replacement of lighting. That's something I really like to hear, especially as a person sometimes traveling at night at 11 p.m., up in the Bronx. Or it's really, really helpful, and I think it's a safety feature, too, for stations that the MTA can directly play a role in. And then second, just in terms of maintenance, what is the most kind of, to not hit capital, right? But what is the biggest kind of scope that operations and maintenance can do in a station that in these moving forward in these kind of when you have these construction projects, like what's the most you can do?
So it's hard to say. Each project is different. So in order to just come up with the station refresh, we had to get together not only with C&D, but also the contractors to get a scope of what they were doing during these 11 weekends, where they plan on doing it, what type of equipment they're going to have in the area. The worst thing we wanted to do was to go out there and newly paint the location, and they start doing some type of construction, releasing dust in the area, and then we have a new type of paint. So the goal was to be able to coordinate with them, but surely anything the outages themselves are worth their weight in gold. So any type of rail replacement is huge for us to get the outages to do rail replacement. End of platform work, which usually require a shutdown, those are very difficult to come by. I'd say more cosmetics when you talk about wall cleaning, tile work, the water infiltration within the station that goes on behind the walls. All of those require outages in order to do. So again, with this one specifically, it should have it should be a nice bow for customers when they come back.
And Midori, I just wanted to give kudos to Demetrius and his team, and probably some things that started when you were here, is the enterprise asset management system. I mean, Subway's, of the things I've seen in the last couple of months that I've been most impressed with, it is the enterprise asset management that Subways has populated over the last several years. And so part of this work, I think, was inspired by a presentation at least Demetrius and team gave me a couple weeks ago, which is really pinpointing some of, again, the things that a customer wouldn't see, but we have a broken tie plate here, or maintenance that doesn't specifically impact our service today, but could tomorrow. And we have an inventory of that. So again, kudos to the Subways team for utilizing that. I think that will also inform the work we will do that won't be seen by the customer, but as Demetrius said, could be felt by the customer, if we don't address it.
Norman?
Yeah, one of the little truisms we lived by when I was on the tools was water always wins. And also one of the sort of, dramatic maintenance failures of the last few years to me was the drainage problems we've had. Now, and I recognize all the work you guys are doing trying to clean out that muck. But how often have you had to go, because the pipes connect on one end, they connect on the other end. So quite often you think you've got it cleared out and it doesn't clear out. how often have you had to go back in after you've completed your drainage task? Do you have an understanding of that, or do you think about that?
Sure. So we actually have a schedule. The schedule's based upon the location and the amount of flooding that location gets. I think we talked about how much water comes into the subway system itself, but there's, in some locations, just because of the high water table, there's always going to be water in the system. So some locations are on a 6-month rotation. Some locations, it can go from 6 months to 3 years for locations that we don't have a large amount of water going through the air. But the point is, I think in this instance, we're taking the opportunity to hit the location in advance of even the scheduled period, which should help out even that much more.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dana or Glenn or Demetrius? Thank you very much for that great team effort. Okay, we'll move on. Lou, you're going to brief us on procurements. I think we have 4 of them.
Yes, thank you, and good morning to the new board members. The procurement package this month includes 4 items for a proposed estimated expenditure of $11.4 million. Items 1 through 3 are contract modifications to extend what Chris mentioned earlier, to extend contracts that are part of the eHail pilot program, and their contracts with Arrow, Leap, and Limosys from the period July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, in the aggregate amount of $11.4 million. This will allow for the continuation of the eHail pilot program, and again, as Chris mentioned, the contingency recovery program that we have, permitting a smooth transition to Phase 2 of the eHail program and the solicitation and award of new contracts for the contingency recovery. Beginning in late 2017, a series of contracts were awarded and extended as needed for the program, whereby Arrow, Leap, and Limosys are the present providers whose contracts we need to extend to provide the continued support for these programs. Just as a matter of information, the average negotiated price per trip for all 3 providers is $40.55, and all have agreed to hold their pricing for this extension period. Just to be noted also, there is one of the companies, Leap, is a New York State certified minority business enterprise, and these contracts at around the midpoint had goals put on them that have been successfully achieved. The 4th action is an RFP authorizing resolution for the procurement of 9 R259 10-ton crane cars for New York City Transit. Crane cars are used to perform the lifting and placement of all track components such as rail, ties, and other equipment that are an integral part of New York City's track maintenance program. The 9 new cars will replace aging cars that are approximately 33 years old, and they're needed to support all critical track work in the support of the capital program and maintenance throughout the system. Utilizing an RFP process will allow us to select the proposals that offer the best overall value through negotiations and evaluation based on criteria that that reflect the critical needs of the agency. I submit these procurements for approval.
Does anyone have any questions for Lou? If not, can I have a motion to accept these procurements? So move. Second? Okay. All those in favor? Against? Great. Motion, procurements carry. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for anyone else? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay. Second? All those in favor? All right. Thank you.